Hello?
Alright, let me check if this works. Let me pull up the stream. Alright, let me see what's the problem here. Anyone in chat? Bro, this is Fortnite with John. Okay, I mean, the two people are here. Come on, let's get on to some Pawn Stars. Alright, History Channel guys? Any History Channelers in chat? Bro, anyone part of History Channel? Oh, I love this. Okay, I gotta turn down the volume. That's way too loud. Oh yeah, there's only off. Why is it not going off?
Yo, John, this is Fortnite with John, trust me. Can you, John, if you can explain to me how this is not Fortnite with John, maybe I'll consider changing the name. Wait, I'll be right back. Alright.
Time to watch ads, but first I gotta waste all my old candies to make sure you don't use brand new ones. Uh, easy money. I gotta waste the candies. 65. Nope. All right, 1940. Hmm. There we go. I gotta make profit here. All right. Nope. Best I can do is 0. They won't even take it. All right. Let me check how the So let me quickly fix up some of my audio real quick. Cause it's disturbed. We gotta have a lot of bad audio. Let's see which one's the right one. Is it game? Okay, it's scuffed because I'm still trying to fix the audio midstream. Okay, yeah, that's the right one. Not sure how loud it's on YouTube.
What do you mean it says frame Minecraft Pog Edition? I went directly onto YouTube and switched it. That's it. Small delay. I gotta go switch it back. I know damn well I switched it.
This is not funny, YouTube. I'm just trying to live stream Pawn Stars the game because I know you have in your game scenes. Alright, where's YouTube Studio? Oh, so ignore the bathroom door. We got it floating up here. Alright, YouTube Studio. This is going pretty good so far. Oh, I know what I'm gonna spend my last 5 candies on. There we go. Chom Lee. Guy gets that some of that Chom Lee in here. Okay, now I'm back to 0 candies. I can actually, do a real stream. Let's pull out the stuff for sale. I gotta expand my pawn shop. Yep, skip. Go to Legacy Classic. Let me check out chat. Bro, we got Olivia, Caroline, typing this with the light up gamer keyboard. Any pogs? Alright, live streaming. Bro, this stream is already better than Eric's. Not even really truly started. Let's see how it looks. 'Cause I'm not going to actually watch stream on my phone this time. Bro, 4K? That's definitely 4K, 4K right there. Trust me. Alright. Okay.
That's not funny. It says right here on my screen, category, gaming, game, Pawn Stars the game. Why is it not switching? I know damn well I'm live streaming Pawn Stars the game. That's not funny. Let's see, 3. Damn it, 5. Coin? Best I can do is 2,000 basically. Uh, damn it. I'm not going to show my screen, but on my screen, it did. This is not funny with YouTube. Okay, I'm just gonna start watching ads after I'm done buying this stuff. I lost profit there. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Bro, Olivia, it's not a high stream yet. What the hell? Damn it.
Alright. Oh yeah, we know the value. Alright. That's a real big uh-oh moment. I'm looking at chat. I'm telling you, that's a big uh-oh. Like, let me just put it back in the right aspect ratio. Alright, let me see what the stream count. Alright. Alright, I'm just gonna close off of YouTube now. Okay, let's see. I'll check the price. I have so much money, I can just check the price on all of these. I think I maxed out everything. Yeah, I got expanded. But I don't have enough. How much money do I need? 70K? I never had that much. Alright, so you guys ready for some ads? It already says it right there in the bottom right. Earn candies now. It knows what I'm trying to do. Mafia City? Bro, how we take the vent off? Question mark. Prison breaks says. I mean, must be pretty good, right, guys? I just new ad. I haven't seen this yet.
Mafia City. Download for free.
Can we get any claps in chat for Mafia City? Okay, so here's a strategy. One of these bad boys is keep on switching. Alright, there we go. New ad. Let me switch. Is that Sans Undertale? Question mark? Olivia, it's not stopped. Trust me, I know it's stopped. Okay, right now, it's actually getting more stopped.
Mafia City. Download for free.
Alright, I'm gonna mess around with OBS. Alright. We're at 2 whole candies now. Wait, can I add an image? Alright, let me add a quick image real quick. Alright, where's my desktop? This is a great image. No, not Brawlhalla. Where's the image? Oh, there we go. Alright. There we go. Then we go to filters. Think I can I make it transparent? I could have sworn there's a way to make it transparent, but for now, we'll just keep it over here on the top right corner. Let me go back to image 2. Alright, next ad. I can't wait to get the Be the King ad.
Hey! Need help?
No, I don't. Oh god, desktop one is going to be high. Why is it giving cookie diary ads? I did not ask for this. I wanted more about the city.
Super! Fantastic!
Let me see if that helps. Uh-oh. I am gonna train History Channel for all its ads on this game. Raw Arrow stream. Nah, John, we ain't doing that there. Yo, John, what's your Raw Arrow on, what's it called? What's it called? Raw Arrow West, I think? Big Pog, Scrabble Go, live stream? I mean, you can do that, John, right after this Pawn Stars 50 ad stream. Hey, John, wanna play Piggy Go, the board game? Alright, John, we download it, but I can't play right now. You know, I'm doing the Pawn Stars live stream. Well, my brain hurts. How will this puzzle work? Uh-oh, you idiot. Now he's dead. He's gone. He's burned. And now he's dead. Wow.
Become a legend. Hero Wars. Ow, this
This is
hurts.
not funny.
Somebody
I'm
beat
not
this guy with a
seeing
wooden
any
staff.
Be
Yes,
the King
all
ads.
right, now we're free. Let's start our
That's
own
not funny.
civilization. Let's get to work. There's no time to waste. We can get to farming and start our own agriculture so we can build a civilization. Let's get some walls for protection and yeah, let's get those wells going, those farms are brewing, roast some chickens because that'll be delicious. Let's build some monuments so we can show how powerful we are.
I'm already getting bad nerves when I watch the 150 ads. Let's go. Let's go off the shit. I've seen this. Never mind, I haven't. This is new. No, that's part soul. Bro, how do you grab a bat? He's had a hammer. This don't make any sense. Wait,
Mafia City.
out.
Download for free.
I don't know about that.
Crystalborn, Heroes of Fate, free from the App Store.
Alright, not ever seen this one. First live stream I watched. First ad I watched this live. Okay, that's impossible. That's not real. Bro, you bought me by the drill. Yo, I don't think that's how it works though.
Mafia City. Download for free.
It don't work like that. It don't. That's funny. That was the Undertale song from Grill. I don't think that's how music is in this world. I don't think that's how it works.
Mafia City. Download for free.
Yeah, a musical instrument turned into gun. It don't work like that.
Fantastic!
It's not fun. What's it make you do that?
Crystalborn, Heroes of Fate. Download and play now. Free from the App Store.
There we go. Now we're on to the bad ads. I've played this coin slot game before. Or this game before. It don't work like that. But yeah. I used to have this game. It don't have Amazon gift card. No, you don't win real money. Is this? Yeah, I had the old version of it. No, this is Coin Dojo sweepstakes. Maybe it's updated. I don't know.
Bro, Gold Lobby is scuffed, okay? First of all, there's solos and duos. Not Pog. Be the king, guys. Be the king, guys. Bro, this girl, She does not know how to
The
do the
chicken
thing with the
steak is
chicken.
poisoned.
Oh my lord, the chicken I saw fresh.
Bro, trust me, the chicken he showed was fresh.
When did you buy the
I
chicken?
know.
1 week ago.
Where did you store
Bro,
it?
look at he stores the chicken.
You store it improperly and want to blame on the return.
My lord, please forgive me.
Bro, why would he do that when the king knows everything? Bro, this is unfair. What the hell? This game is so unfair. I mean, I understand, you know. See, look, he dies, but he doesn't. I mean, I believe in equality. This
After you weren't fucking taking care of like your you make child. Up some shit. You like you could have even asked us like yeah you could have dead asked.
it don't work like that, guys. It don't. It really don't. This ain't how the game works.
Mafia City. Download for free.
You know what, John? Didn't save my data either, except for my knives. So I mean, just get good. See, John, you gotta play the best game in the world. Ace Force, Joint Combat.
Become a legend. Hero Wars.
Okay, 1, 2, see, 3 seconds of just this. Pure no sound. It don't work like that though. You see? This don't make any sense. Uh-oh. Yo, can anyone donate $37? Be really helpful.
Alright, I'm not a musician, but I mean, that's not how this instrument works. It doesn't work like that.
Mafia City. Download for free.
Look, he gets a hammer. He does that. I mean, it don't work. Even like use the back of the hammer to try and pry it open. He just went bam, bam, and did that. It don't work.
That drill right there, I don't think you can do that. So like 1, 2, it don't work. I mean, not pogs, not pogs.
Mafia City. Download for free.
I mean, we're at the halfway mark. I already got 25 candies.
Bro, wait, no one plays Mega Wars Mega. It's not even real. It's trash. We play Mega. We play Megas. They're actual trash. It's number one. It's a 50-50 game. Either you get on a team with like the 4 level 50s, or you get on a team with like other level 10s trying to get carried. It's a trash game. Megas is the worst, okay? All you gotta do is grab 4 people, and if you're on Discord, you can just plan out everything and get the easiest one in the world, because I mean, just rush the other team. But no one plays Mega, because Mega's not real. I'm gonna talk to Anakin and be like, yo, Anakin, get rid of Megas. It don't work like that.
Crystalborn,
I think
Heroes
that's
of
only
Fate.
some hype.
Download and
I
play
mean, John, if you want me to
free
get on,
from the
sure,
App
why
Store.
not? I mean, my laptop, it's only dying slowly. I mean, well, not slowly. It's already like, it's already about that. It's like, yo, just take me out my mids. I'm like, nope, ain't your time yet. My laptop's dying until I say it's allowed to. I don't care if the CPU blows out. I'm running it off of one cord.
Become a legend. Hero Wars.
Alright, I'm logging the big bucks right here. This is definitely 100% real. Wow, how? I mean, how is this real? What? Bruh. That's a bruh moment. Wow, just want 659? Real? Congratulations, your team now. I think you guys know what I'm about to do. I'm about to get another candy. Okay, we got 29. See, that's unfair. At least you get arrested. I feel like skip one turn is more like get arrested. They get double blood. And she lands on the cannon. She like. Remember, this guy's locked up. And this gets killed by her. That's not fair. I don't want to play that game anymore. Cause you see that it don't work.
Crystalborn, Heroes of Fate. Download and play now. Free from the App Store.
Bro, he dead. Okay, but you see, this is just same as the other rat, except this time it doesn't show him getting the hammer. Same ending, basically same story. Except in the last one, yeah, she does get the hammers, given straight to him. Bro, Pawn Stars would be a god-tier game if it was online. It would be, I mean, maybe, like, it's kind of weird. I wish I had an online leaderboard so I can be like, yo, I'm top 100 Pawn Star players. But I mean, it's a Facebook game. What do you expect? Facebook's games like making doing those like coding things like, hey, everyone learn coding. Except you did to like a bunch of middle schoolers, and that's what they came up with. Facebook games are like the minimum to even be a game. 50 owls in one room? You can't even buy L as an actual cardboard stand. So, I mean, we can't do that. We don't do that here. Uh-oh, I gotta sell the stuff. Alright. Alright, okay. Profits? Any profiters in chat? Anyone gaining profit? Bro, is anyone gaining profit in chat right now? Because I know I am. Trust me. Me right now, I'm gaining profits. We only gain profits here. Alright. Yeah, you can't buy any cardboard L's. I mean, right now, I'm up for some more Chumleys. I want Chumley. Oh, look at him. Look at him. That's L. This right here? That right there, that's L. Any L's in chat? Okay, let me check the card pot. I think I had the card over here. Yeah. Alright. 2K, we'll do 16, we'll do 116, okay, content, I overpaid! That's not funny. William Tell Cast Iron Bank? Alright. 1K. Okay, 11K, bro. Any $8,000 in chat? 8K? Pog? That's Pogs. I know Pog. And that right there? Kind of Pog. That's Pog. That's an Champ moment. But we gotta get more candies. Gotta get back on the Champ grind.
Mafia City. Download for free.
This is so sad. Can we help Alan downset with the guy? We gotta help him out. We're just using him at this point. You know what? That's not a Pog. It's not about equality. That's why respect for both. However, don't just target one of them. Be the king poggers? Any bad chickens in chat? Anyone leaving their chicken in the kitchen not frozen?
My lord, the chicken I saw fresh.
I know someone's in chat that's a chicken that they keep unfrozen that they bought 1 week ago. I mean, this is definitely me when I become an adult right there. I'm only doing that.
You store it improperly and want to blame on the return.
My lord, please forgive me.
Oh no!
Yo, bro, why you turn green? That's not funny. Bro, don't jump. Nah. Oh, never mind, you live. Oh, bro, you what the fuck? Bro, this Power 76? Nah, never mind. Power 76 has worse graphics than this. But he did. Look. Oh, he died. Bro, how he died though? I want to kill $1,200 in 3 points right now. This is not on my phone, it's just really that low quality of the video. I still have no. Why is it so low quality? I mean, I'm watching at 40p. I'm live streaming my phone to my laptop.
Get 1,200 free prints a year direct from your phone with Snapfish.
And then live stream down to YouTube. That's not funny.
Oh, no.
Become a legend. Hero Wars.
Bro, is this a reboot of the original Fallout game? You know, no Fallout was like a top-down, view game, yeah? It took me to the Google Play Store, one of those ads. More games you might love. Okay. Oh, we're at 40 candies. 10 more candies. This ad's not. I don't like these ads. Okay. I'm here for the Mafia Cities and Be the King ads. And I'm not seeing each one of them. Okay. Please show me Be the King. I gotta learn what happens to the chicken. What do you do with it? I mean, yeah, it's no longer edible, but what do you do to it? I mean, what happens? Okay? I wanna know.
Alright, let's go.
Ow, this hurts. Somebody beat this guy with a wooden staff. Yes, alright, now we're free. Let's start our own civilization. Let's get to work. There's no time to waste. We can get to farming and start our own agriculture so we can build a civilization. Let's get some walls for protection and yeah, let's get those wells going, those farms are brewing, roast some chickens because that'll be delicious. Let's build some monuments so we can show how powerful we are.
Bro, where's my ad? Where's my ad? But it's not giving my ad. Alright, let me quickly, whoop. Alright, let's go. Okay, I'm reading up the game. It doesn't want to give you my ad, okay? I'm out here trying to watch ads. And what's the game doing? Not giving me ads. Oh, that was Rick and the old man back there. Okay. So this guy won't want more. If I can, best I can do is 3. Okay. I'll do 4. I'll do, yeah. Okay, sell fast. Any pogs? Pog. Alright, not. I gotta sell. Okay, gaining profits. Alright. Yeah. Oh, 33 candies almost done. Let's go. Pog. Okay, you see, this game don't make no sense. What was that red light back there? Also, where did you get helicopters, missiles? I mean, I don't kind of say the game's realistic, but if I don't know, a prison and I see a green helicopter with missiles flying at me, I'm not thinking it's the whole for a good reason. I've seen fish beds, and I mean, fish beds, they're kind of pog, but helicopters, no, no, no. Helicopters are not even real. I'm gonna get rid of them.
Mafia City. Download for free.
Okay, now this is a new ad. I've never seen this before, but I'm definitely sure this was made in Blender. See, they did bad. This is a really bad UV unwrapping on the sides. Okay, this does not look like this is the actual game. Also, they just changed the background and the shade. He just made it slightly yellow and changed the background. That's it. I'm about to become a golf rifle main right now. Right now. I'll be right back, chat. I mean, maybe... I think what are you saying, please in chat? Oh, no.
Super fantastic.
Alright, I'm back. Let's go. Next ad. Oh, I love this type of ad. It's Be the King. My king, the chicken he sold me is poison.
Oh,
My lord, the chicken I sold are fresh. Investigate. When did you buy the chicken? 1 week ago. Where did you store it? In the kitchen. You store it improperly and you want to blame on the retailer? My lord, please forgive me. Be the king? You want my dubbing of it? I can send the audio for permission. Alright, okay, 40... 49? Or at 40, 49 after this ad?
Oh, no. Become a legend. Hero Wars.
Okay. I got peanuts. No. Alright, we're at 50 now. Any pogs? Any pogs? First, I got to take a quick snack break. Okay, got. You know, I'm kind of hungry, but I'm not trying to eat right now. I'm trying to. Okay. Mmm. Damn it. The peanuts hit the mic. It's very kind of pog. I wish I had almonds, though. Almonds are major poggies. Alright, final ad. I don't like this ad, okay? I understand you don't try. Yeah, you know. Hard girls, but the thing is, peanut babe's problem. That's not equality. It's only going for one gender, okay? There we go. 50 candy. Mmm. 50 candies. You wanna know what I'm gonna buy now? I'm gonna buy this clock. Alright. Time to buy Tina. There it is! Tina! Good old Tina. We own Tina now. Bye. Okay, we can now scam him. Let's scam him right now. Mmm. This was a great live stream. So much content. Let me turn on the music. Alright. 50 ads! Well, I think the live stream's done now. But first, one quick round of Sidus. One quick round of Sidus. Actually, no, one quick round of Ace Force. Mmm. Alright. If you want to leave a little bit, you can go ahead. Oh, team chest. I'm assuming you team grinded out a bunch of rounds. Alright. No fish beds. Come on. I want you for my fish beds. Also, almost all peanuts. That's not a pog. Packs, packs. How many more fish beds do I need? How about upgrades? Anything in the lab? I need 2 more golden ones to make common radar. Oh yeah, I'm gonna lose. Luckily, I'm only doing 1 round, so it doesn't even matter.
want to lose any medals. I mean, there is more time. I would have obviously won. Alright. Stream over.